Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am back with another video preview for the 89th Academy Awards. Today we're going to take a look at one of the categories that gets people the most excited and riled up, Best Animated Feature. Best Animated Feature is a recent category in the history of the Oscars, as it was only established in 2001, with the very first winner being Shrek. But since then, many great films have been nominated and won this award, and no doubt several animated films from this year will continue in that tradition. But which films can actually be nominated for this award? That today is what I'm here to talk about. The rules for Best Animated Feature are not necessarily as complicated and complex as the rules are for the short films or the documentary categories. Basically, Best Animated Feature just has to follow the basic guidelines of the general Oscar eligibility rules, in that the film must be at least 40 minutes long, it must open in at least one theater in Los Angeles between January 1st and December 31st of this year and play for 7 consecutive days, and the screen credits of the film must be submitted to the Academy by a certain day. For Best Animated Feature, I believe it was November 1st of this year, according to the Academy rules that I read for the 89th Academy Awards. Any films that do not follow those requirements will not be eligible for a nomination. And also, at least 75% of the film must contain some type of animation, whether it be hand-drawn, computer, stop motion. A little live action here and there is acceptable. A lot of people wondered if the Lego movie got snubbed because it had some live action moments in it, and while it did, it wasn't enough for it to be disqualified. So there can be some live action in an animated movie. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, was eligible last year, even though it had some live action in it, but the live action must not overwhelm the animation in the movie itself. This year, an all-time record of 27 films have been declared eligible for Best Animated Feature. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the list of contenders. You'll recognize some names but won't recognize others, and then I'm going to talk about them, particularly the films that you might not recognize. These are the 27 eligible contenders for Best Animated Feature. The Angry Birds Movie, April and the Extraordinary World, by Lal, Finding Dory, Ice Age Collision Course, Kingsglaive Final Fantasy XV, Kubo and the Two Strings, Kung Fu Panda 3, The Little Prince, Long Way North, Miss Hakusai, Moana, Monkey King Hero is Back, Mune, Mustafa and the Magician, My Life as a Zucchini, Phantom Boy, The Red Turtle, Sausage Party, The Secret Life of Pets, Sing, Snow Time, Storks, Trolls, 25 April, Your Name, Zootopia. Now, several of these films you may have heard of or seen throughout the year. The Angry Birds movie came out back in May. It's, of course, based on the popular Angry Birds app, and it's had a voice cast featuring Jason Sudeikis, Josh Gad, Danny McBride, Peter Dinklage, Maya Rudolph, and Bill Hader, and Sean Penn. And it was basically about the angry birds who live on an island, and these green pigs come over to enslave them, basically, and they have to fight back. That's pretty much it. I saw the movie. I didn't like it at all. There were some elements I thought were funny, but I was just bored out of my mind. Some people thought it was okay or mediocre, but I don't recall too many people thinking the movie was incredible. Finding Dory, of course, is one of the biggest hits of the year, and some were wondering, was a sequel to Finding Nemo even necessary, and could it even be good? And in this case, it was. Finding Dory, I thought, was a very excellent film. I wouldn't say it's as good as Finding Nemo, but it's pretty darn close. Ellen DeGeneres, of course, returns to voice Dory. Albert Brooks returns to voice Marlin. They got a new actor for Nemo because the original actor who voiced him in the first film is now all grown up. but he actually makes a cameo appearance in this movie. Um, and then there are several new characters here that are voiced by a great variety of actors, because Finding Dory is about Dory trying to find her parents, whom she hasn't seen since she was a child, and her parents are voiced by Diane Keaton and Eugene Levy, because we see them a lot in flashbacks. And then there are several other characters voiced. Idris Elba and Dominic West, I believe, voice these sea lions. Ed O'Neill from Modern Family voices this octopus named Hank. Sigourney Weaver voices herself as this aquarium narrator. It makes sense when you see the movie. Ty Burrell and Caitlin Olsen also have roles in this film. So it's a very, very good voice cast. Pixar casting directors really know what they're doing, and if you haven't seen Finding Dory, I highly recommend you check it out if you have not yet seen it already. Ice Age Collision Course I did not see, but I have heard nothing positive about it. Basically, from what I hear, it's been just another cash grab Ice Age film. I know most of the voice cast from all the other films, like Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, Dennis Leary, and Queen Latifah are back again. I'll be honest, I haven't seen an Ice Age movie since the third one, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. I thought the first Ice Age was good, I thought the second one was good, and the third one was okay, I guess, but I didn't see the fourth one, which was called Continental Drift and Collision Course. Everyone has said it's the absolute worst and that just nothing is good about it at all. I highly doubt it'll actually get nominated, but since it followed the rules of eligibility, people can nominate it if they want to, but I don't think they will. Kubo and the Two Strings, that film is a stop-motion animated film from Leica. They also made films like Coraline, Paranorman, and The Box Trolls. And although it got widely praised by critics, it unfortunately flopped at the box office. Stop-motion animated films don't always resonate well with the general public, and sadly that was the case for Kubo and the Two Strings. And I didn't love it as much as everyone else did. A lot of people think it's the absolute best animated film of the year. I gave it an 8 out of 10 because there were some elements in the story I thought were flawed, but I can't talk about them here without giving away major spoilers. But it was still a very good film all around, with an excellent voice cast, including Art Parkinson from Game of Thrones as Kubo, and then Charlize Theron and Matthew McConaughey are also the major players here, as they play a monkey and this man named Beetle, because he's trapped inside a beetle suit. Rooney Mara plays these witches, and she's quite creepy, actually. George Takei has a small role in here. You'll recognize him immediately because he does his trademark, "Oh my!" But his role's very small, unfortunately. Ralph Fiennes is in this movie as well. And he's very good. Basically, Kubo and the Two Strings is about this boy who has to go on this quest to stop these supernatural forces, and he's the only one that can do it. And the two strings refers to this guitar-like instrument that he carries that has magical powers. That's all I can really say, because if I were to go into anything more, I'd be giving away major spoilers. It's probably a lock to get a Best Animated Feature nomination at this point. Will it actually win? I don't know. But it's a lock for a nomination. I did not see Kung Fu Panda 3. I honestly haven't seen any of the Kung Fu Panda movies. I remember when I saw the trailer for the first one, back in high school, I thought, no, this looks really stupid, and it looks like it was made just for 5-year-olds. But a lot of people really love these movies, and they say they're a lot more mature than the trailers make them look. And I know pretty much all the voice cast from the first two movies, like Jack Black and Dustin Hoffman, return for this one. So I'll have to watch the first two movies before I watch this one, because I know each film picks up where the other left off. I'll try and give it a chance when I can. The Little Prince I've heard amazing things about. That got delayed theatrically many times until they finally released it on Netflix back in August. But it received rave reviews from critics. One of the directors of that movie actually directed the 2012 Pixar movie Brave. The Little Prince is an adaptation of the classic French children's novel. There's another story within it, an original story of the story of the Little Prince being told to this little girl. So it's a story within a story, and it combines both stop motion animation and traditional computer animation from what I've seen in the trailer. I know some of the voice cast includes Jeff Bridges, Mackenzie Foy, and Rachel McAdams. I haven't seen it yet, but it's on Netflix, so I'll make sure to watch it there. Moana just came out a couple days ago. I've heard nothing but great things about it. It's a film about this teenage girl on a Polynesian island who has to go find this demigod named Maui in order to help save her people. And Dwayne Johnson provides the voice of Maui. And Moana herself is voiced by a newcomer named Aiuli Cravalho, if that's how you pronounce her name correctly. And some of the other members of the cast include Alan Tudyk as this rooster, Temuera Morrison, who played Jango Fett in the Star Wars prequels. He plays Moana's father here. And the music for Moana, since this is an animated Disney musical, was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course, is a very famous Broadway composer, best known for musicals like In the Heights and Hamilton. Hamilton, of course, is one of the most talked about musicals in years, and it swept the Tony Awards earlier this year, if you saw my Tony Awards video. I've heard some of the songs from Moana that you can listen to on YouTube, and they sound absolutely incredible. Disney really loves to hire composers with a Broadway background, such as Alan Menken, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is another excellent choice just from the songs. The movie has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, so I'm definitely going to see it in the near future. That's probably a lock to be nominated because the Oscars just love Disney movies, and Disney almost always knows what they're doing. Let's see. Sausage Party, I sadly did not get a chance to see. I was just very busy around the time it came out with other movies and other things. You know, if it gets nominated, I'll make sure to see it. This is a very busy time of year for me, not just in terms of work, but movies, because there's so many movies coming out. I think Sausage Party may be on DVD, so maybe I'll rent it from my library and watch it. But of course, that's the very, very adult animated film about food items in a store who discover what really happens when humans pick them. They think humans picking them means they're going to go to some great place, when in reality they're going to be eaten. But it has a very great voice cast from what I've seen, like Seth Rogen, Kristen Wiig, Edward Norton, Salma Hayek, Michael Cera, and Alan Menken, who I just mentioned earlier. He wrote a song for this movie, which is very, very different from what he usually does, because Alan Menken is known for writing Disney songs, you know, family-friendly songs, but apparently this one is not. It just goes to show his versatility as a composer. The Secret Life of Pets I did see. It received mostly decent reviews saying, you know, it's good, it's not amazing, but it's good nonetheless. I honestly found it very overrated. And, you know, the story just felt very generic, and while the voice cast was certainly good for the most part, you know, you had Louis C.K. and Eric Stonestreet and Ellie Kemper, Hannibal Buress, Bobby Moynihan, Jenny Slate, Albert Brooks. They were fine for the most part, but I absolutely could not stand Kevin Hart as this psychotic rabbit named Snowball. Now, there's been a lot of mixed reaction to Snowball. Some people thought Snowball was the best character of the movie, but I absolutely could not stand him. I just don't like it when Kevin Hart goes into his 5-year-old with ADHD mode, when he's like yelling and screaming at the top of his lungs. Basically, he's just doing every old shtick that Adam Sandler ever did. Because Kevin Hart is basically today what Adam Sandler was 10 years ago. You know, very, very popular with the general public, and his movies generally tend to do very well at the box office, but never well with critics. Of course, in The Secret Life of Pets, Kevin Hart does not voice the main character, but he sure becomes a big part of the side action. But that's not the only reason why I thought the movie was overrated. Like I said, I thought the story was generic and cliched, very predictable, and I just, you know, it just felt like it could have worked better as some Nickelodeon special or something. I don't know. And because the movie made so much money at the box office, they're going to make a sequel in like 2018. So we'll see, but I'm not very optimistic there. Sing I've heard a lot about, that comes out right around Christmas. I know a lot of people are really excited for this movie, particularly because of the voice cast, which includes Matthew McConaughey, Reese Witherspoon, Seth MacFarlane, Scarlett Johansson, Leslie Jones, Taron Egerton, and many, many more. Like, the voice cast for this movie is insane. The story itself, to me, kind of looks generic. It's set in a world full of just animals. It's about a koala who's trying to save his theater by hosting, like, a singing competition. And in the trailer, we see animals singing covers of various songs, like Nicki Minaj's Anaconda, which I cannot stand that song, and admittedly that's part of the reasons why I'm not looking forward to the movie, because I don't want to see animals singing that, because that song is just awful. Then they cover songs like Sam Smith's Stay With Me, which is actually a good song. But it just feels like we see a lot of cliches. We see like an overworked housewife and mother, a gangster with a heart of gold. We've seen those types of characters tons of times in movies before, and I don't see how they'll be any different. I'm also hesitant because the director of Sing has no previous animation background. I will give Sing a chance, I promise. I'll see what the reviews are like. I know early word's been pretty good so far, and I'll see it for myself, but I don't really see it being a big contender, though. Trolls I've heard about. Some people thought it was decent, others overrated. It has that song Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake, which, you know, you've probably heard to death on the radio this past summer. Trolls probably I don't think will get nominated for this category, but I wouldn't be surprised if they really campaign for Can't Stop the Feeling to get nominated for Best Original Song, but we'll see. But Trolls, you know, it's based on those troll dolls, and it features, once again, a huge all-star voice cast from what I remember reading on the IMDb page. There's Justin Timberlake, Anna Kendrick, Zooey Deschanel, Russell Brand, Christine Baranski, James Corden, and a whole bunch of other people I can't remember at the top of my head. I need to see Trolls soon, and I will, so I can get my own verdict on it. And then finally, the last film that everyone is probably aware of is Zootopia. I really love Zootopia. I think it's one of the best films of the year. It's an amazing film with a great voice cast like Jennifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman, Idris Elba, J.K. Simmons, Jenny Slate, Octavia Spencer, and it has very likable characters you root for, and it also explores some very big social themes that Disney really hasn't done in this much detail before. This film takes a very strong look at issues that are very big in our society today, particularly sexism and racism, and we see that play very much in this movie, and it really affects the course of the movie. I can't talk about it too much because, again, spoilers, although I'm sure, I would hope many of you watching this video have seen Zootopia by now because it's one of the biggest box office hits of the year. But if you have not yet seen Zootopia, please go see it. It's definitely out on DVD and Blu-ray now because it came out way back in March. Yeah, and also Shakira is in this movie as this pop star named Gazelle, and she sings the film's main song, Try Everything, which is a very good catchy. Anyway, those are the major animated films that you've probably heard of, at least that I've heard of. But we must not forget the smaller films, because there's always at least one or two of these smaller, independent, or foreign animated films that usually creep up into this category, because most Oscar voters don't want to just see big blockbusters in this category. They want to see a mix of all types of animation, from fun family films to more serious adult films. So here are all these other films. I managed to copy their plot summaries off IMDb or other websites, and I'm going to talk a little bit about their plots and their voice casts and any other interesting facts you might want to know about these films. So here are all the other films. April and the Extraordinary World. In 1941, the world is radically different from the one we know from history books. Geopolitics has developed strangely. Napoleon V rules France, and for the last 70 years, scholars have been mysteriously disappearing, depriving mankind of their inventions. Without radio, television, electricity, aviation, and the combustion engine, the world is mired in outdated technology. In this bizarre universe, April, played by Marion Cotillard, a teenage girl, Darwin, her talking cat, Pops, her grandfather, and Julius, a young scoundrel and police informer, go off in search of April's parents, two of the missing scientists. The quartet will face many dangers and mysteries in this strange, new, rigged world. Now, this is an animated film that was originally done in French. Marion Cotillard is an Oscar-winning French actress who also has had a very good career doing English-language Hollywood films. She was just in that new film Allied with Brad Pitt. But she voiced the character April in the original version. I think she reprises the role in the English-language dub version. And all the other actors from the original version are all French, and I don't know any of them, but in the English-language dub, some of the other voice actors include Tony Hale, Paul Giamatti, Susan Sarandon, and J.K. Simmons. Very impressive cast. Next we have Bilal. Bilal is a bright-eyed, carefree boy ignited with fanciful imagination and a dream only a 7-year-old can conjure. On a day as similar as any, this dream turns into a nightmare when the village he lives in is ransacked, orphaning him and his younger sister, Gufira. Thrown into a world where greed and injustice rule all, Bilal and Gufira find themselves bound to the chaotic wills and wants of the most powerful man in the city, Umayya. Dreams of freedom and the warrior he fantasized he would become are kept deep in Bilal's yearning heart. Bilal will soon learn he must choose his own fate and find the courage to raise his voice. And some of the voice cast includes Adewale Akinoi Agbaje. I have no idea if that's pronounced correctly or not, but he was recently in films like Suicide Squad and Trumbo. There's also Ian McShane, a Disney Channel star named China Ann McClain, American Pie star Thomas Ian Nicholas, Family Ties star Michael Gross, Jacob Lattimore, and voice actor Fred Tatasciore. Next is Kingsglaive Final Fantasy XV. The magical kingdom of Lucis is home to the hallowed crystal, but the menacing empire of Niflheim will stop at nothing to make it theirs. War has raged between the two for as long as most can remember. King Regis of Lucis commands an elite force of soldiers dubbed the Kingsglaive. Wielding their king's magic, Nyx Ulrich and his fellow glaives stand before the crowned city of Insomnia, fighting to stay the inexorable advance of Niflheim's imperial army. Before the overwhelming military might of the empire, King Regis can only salvage his kingdom by accepting an ultimatum. He must cede all lands outside the crown city and see his son, Prince Noctis, wed to Lady Lunafreya, the former princess of Tenebrae, now captive of Niflheim. As the battle of wills rages, the machinations of Niflheim transform Insomnia into an awe-inspiring battleground, pulling Nyx into a struggle for the very survival of the kingdom. And some of the most notable voice actors in this one include Aaron Paul, Sean Bean, and Lena Headey. Long Way North. 1882, St. Petersburg. Sasha, a young Russian aristocrat, has always been fascinated by her grandfather's life as an adventurer. A renowned explorer, he designed a magnificent Arctic ship, but he hasn't returned from his last expedition to the North Pole. To save her family's honor, Sasha runs away. Headed towards the Great North, she follows her grandfather's trail in search of the famous ship. And this is a foreign animated film that I do not believe has an English language voice dub. I don't know if it's going to get one, but it's been getting a lot of high praise from critics who have seen it. Next is Miss Hakusai. Set in 1814, Miss Hakusai focuses on Oe, the daughter of famed artist Tetsuzo, better known by his pen name Hakusai, as she tries to navigate the various aspects of her life. Oe spends the bulk of her time assisting her divorced father, who cares about his art and not much else. This is a Japanese anime film, although it's not from Studio Ghibli, which is the most prominent anime studio in the world. I will be talking about Studio Ghibli in a couple films though, so stay tuned. Next is Monkey King Hero is Back. The all-powerful Monkey King once roamed freely between heaven and earth, but after angering the gods, he was imprisoned within an ice cage deep within the mountains. 500 years later, monsters attack a small village and a child flees to the mountains. Unknowingly, the child releases the Monkey King from his curse. Now, this is a Chinese animated film that includes an original Chinese version and an English dubbed version, and the titular Monkey King is voiced by Jackie Chan. And Jackie Chan actually recently received an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement at the Academy's Governors Awards a few weeks ago. Moon. When a fawn named Moon becomes the guardian of the moon, he faces a great danger. A corrupt titan named Necros wants the sun for himself, placing the balance of night and day in great peril. Now, with the help of a wax child named Glim and the warrior Sohon, who also became the sun guardian, they go out on an exciting journey to get the sun back and restore the moon to its rightful place in the sky. Now, this is a French animated film, I believe, but it has a song from 30 Seconds to Mars. Next is Mustafa and the Magician. Now, this film actually did not have a page on IMDb, so I had to literally go on Google to see if it actually has its own website, and sure enough it did. Now, this film is a foreign animated film, and while they did have an English plot description, it was clear that the person who wrote it does not speak English as a first language, so there were a lot of typos and a lot of grammatical errors. I tried very hard to reword what was written so that I could give a coherent plot summary, but all I can do is just describe based on what I see here. So basically, this film is about a prince named Mustafa who has to stop an evil magician from destroying his kingdom. That's basically it. Alright. Next is My Life as a Zucchini. Now, this film was actually submitted by Switzerland as their entry for Best Foreign Language Film. So this film could be nominated in both of those categories. But here's what it's about. Courgette is a 9-year-old boy. After his mother's sudden death, Courgette is befriended by a police officer, Raymond, who accompanies him to his new foster home filled with other orphans his age. At first, he struggles to find his place in this strange, at times hostile environment. Yet with Raymond's help and his newfound friends, Courgette eventually learns to trust, finds true love, and at last a new family of his own. Next is Phantom Boy. A superpowered boy helps a wheelchair-bound policeman in his attempt to bring down a mob kingpin. And some of the most notable actors in the voice cast include Fred Armisen, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Jared Padalecki from Supernatural. Alright, next is The Red Turtle. This dialogue-less film follows the major life stages of a castaway on a deserted tropical island populated by turtles, crabs, and birds. Now, this film is produced by Studio Ghibli. However, this is much different than what they usually do because this is their first non-Japanese animated film that they've ever produced. And the guy who made this film, Michael Dudok DeWitt, is actually an Oscar winner. He won an Oscar back in 2000, I think, for an animated short he did called Father and Daughter. Alright. Next is Snow Time. To amuse themselves during the winter school break, the kids in a small village decide to have a massive snowball fight. Luke and Sophie, both 11 years old, become the leaders of the opposing sides. Sophie and her cohort defend an elaborate snow fort against the assault of Luke's horde. Whichever side occupies the fort at the end of the winter break wins. This is a Canadian animated film, and it actually features a song by Celine Dion in the soundtrack, in French no less too. This is because Celine Dion comes from Quebec, which is a very big French-speaking region of Canada, and she's released many albums in both French and English throughout her singing career. 25 April. The tragic 1915 Gallipoli campaign of World War I is told through the perspective of 6 New Zealanders who were involved. And Gallipoli was a huge military campaign during World War I fought between the the Turks and the countries that were part of the British Empire, including Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, and it lasted from April 25th, 1915 to January 9th, 1916. This film is, I believe, an animated documentary with like voiceovers of like diary entries from the soldiers and things like that. The last film on my list here is Your Name, which is another Japanese anime film. Mitsuha is the daughter of the mayor of a small mountain town. She's a straightforward high school girl who lives with her sister and her grandmother and has no qualms about letting it be known that she's uninterested in Shinto rituals or helping her father's electoral campaign. Instead, she dreams of leaving the boring town and trying her luck in Tokyo. Taki is a high school boy in Tokyo who works part-time in an Italian restaurant and aspires to become an architect or an artist. Every night he has a strange dream where he becomes a high school girl in a mountain town. Now, an interesting thing about this film is that this is the first anime film not made by Studio Ghibli or Hayao Miyazaki, who is basically Japan's equivalent of Walt Disney, to gross nearly $100 million at the Japanese box office. So this was a huge box office hit in Japan, and the Academy does love anime films, and whether this one will actually be nominated, I'm not sure. But we'll see. But those are all the contenders for Best Animated Feature this year, and if I were to try and predict what the nominees will be, I'd say we have at least 3 locks so far. I think Zootopia is a definite lock, I think Kubo and the Two Strings is a definite lock, and I think Moana is a definite lock because the Academy loves Disney movies, they love stop-motion animated movies. All 3 of them are among the most critically acclaimed films of the year, so those I think will be the 3 big blockbuster ones. Finding Dory also has a strong chance of being nominated, I think, because it's a Pixar film and the Academy loves Pixar a lot, even to the point of controversy because many people didn't think Brave deserved to win back in 2012. But most of the other times Pixar has won Best Animated Feature and no one complained. I don't think Finding Dory, if it's nominated, will win, because while a lot of people loved it, not everyone is saying it's the absolute best animated film of the year. So Finding Dory, it's possible for it to be nominated, but don't necessarily count it as an automatic lock. Some wonder if Kung Fu Panda 3 might be nominated because the first 2 were, but unfortunately, I think because Kung Fu Panda 3 came out way back in January, that kind of hurts it. Kung Fu Panda 3 was supposed to come out in December 2015, but they moved it because they knew it had no chance against Star Wars The Force Awakens. The Little Prince could possibly be nominated because it's an adaptation of a classic tale. There's a possibility Sausage Party could be nominated. Despite its very, very adult sense of humor, it was highly acclaimed by critics. But unfortunately, some behind-the-scenes controversy may turn off Oscar voters from nominating it. If you're not aware, news came out shortly after Sausage Party hit theaters that a lot of the animators working on it not only were working overtime, but not being paid for that overtime. And half of these animators that were doing this overtime work did not receive credit in the film itself during the end credits. Of some of these smaller movies, I think The Red Turtle has a very strong chance of being nominated, given that it's Studio Ghibli, its director already won an Oscar, and just the uniqueness of it, that it's a dialogue-free film that I think will definitely intrigue a lot of voters. Long Way North could possibly be nominated. Miss Hakusai and Your Name could be nominated because the Academy has a long track record of nominating Japanese anime films, like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, The Wind Rises, Tale of the Princess Kaguya. If I were to try and predict a full 5 list, I'm going to say, again, the full 5 at this point will be Zootopia, Kubo and the Two Strings, Moana. I'm going to say right now Finding Dory will be nominated, and finally The Red Turtle. Those are what I think the 5 nominees will eventually be, but we won't find out for sure until Tuesday, January 24th, when the actual Oscar nominations are announced. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below which animated films you'd like to see get nominated for the Best Animated Feature Oscar. Please subscribe to my channel for more of these videos, and stay tuned throughout the next few months because I will be covering all these award shows until they're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!